Hello everybody and welcome to another YouTube video. In this episode I am showing you the process of this wee eye painting here. So I'm going to do a bit of a voiceover for this one and talk to you about my thought processes and how I actually went about painting this eye. So I guess this will be a bit more of an intermediate painting tutorial, assuming you already know how to do wet into wet or wet on dry, or that you've got the right paper, that you've got the right paints and paintbrushes. So I'm going to skip all of that and just treat this a bit more of an intermediate tutorial about where to actually get started with the painting, layer by layer, the process that I follow to actually make a painting. So hopefully some of you guys find this useful, and let's get into it. So here, first step, I'm just applying some masking fluid to the very lightest parts of the eye. This is just to save them instead of me painting around them the whole painting. I think it's just so much easier to use masking fluid or carefully cut pieces of masking tape to mask off those very white parts of your painting. Then I'm going to start with the very lightest part of the painting. So in that case, that is the white of the eye. So in my reference photo, there were quite a lot of colours in there, a lot of whites and reds and blues, so I just sort of put those down where I see it and keeping each layer pretty light as I go along. Next, I'm blocking in the major values of the skin tones, so it's all still very light at this point. I normally start with working from warmest to coolest in the skin tone. So if you refer to my skin color tutorial video, you'll see that I normally start with a warm golden yellow color. So that's what I've done there. And while that was drying, I thought I would go onto the background. And it's always a good idea to paint from background to foreground, from least amount of detail to most amount of detail. I do sometimes work wet into wet, but only for the very first few layers, the very largest areas. The way that I paint is largely wet onto dry, and that's just because I feel like I have a lot more control. So I'll lay down a block of colour and then I'll soften the edges. Block of colour, soften the edges, and then layer it up to get the value as dark as I want it. I feel like the result you get from slowly adding layers is just going to be so much nicer and more controlled and smoother looking than if you were to try and put that dark value in straight away, because then you've only got one shot to get it right. But with layers you can slowly build it up and keep slowly tweaking as you go. And then slowly by slowly I start adding more and more saturation and more darker colors until it just sort of starts to look like the way I want it to. Some of these layers you'll see when I put them down, they look very, very saturated and very, very bright, but then a second later you'll see that they show up very, very light, and that's because when watercolor dries, it dries a lot lighter than what you think it is. So that's quite good actually in terms of layering, because if you think something you've gone in way too dark and you're a bit concerned, then it doesn't really matter because you know that it's going to dry a lot better. A lot lighter, I should say. So I went with a bit more of a more painterly style and just let a lot of my wet into wet splotchy patterns, just left them in, and I thought that it kind of added almost as if it's the light veins underneath the skin. And then lastly, my most favorite part of any painting is doing the eyelashes and then also the white highlights. So I'm going and painting the eyelashes now and the eyebrows. The best way I've found to do this is to tilt your painting around so that your brush strokes are following your most natural movement of your arm. You get a much smoother, more graceful line if you just turn the painting around and use your arm to make those brush strokes and make each eyelash look slightly different thicknesses, different tones, have some lighter values in there, and that's going to make your eyelashes look more realistic. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys got something out of that. I hope some of those tips will be useful for you going forward in your own future paintings. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.